Before the video starts, there is a disclaimer. I am not a medical professional, and a lot of what I will be talking about today is based on research and personal experiences. If you are struggling with mental health issues, please seek professional help and get in touch with your medical provider. I have left resources in the description of the video for anyone who may need them. Saw dudes, it is now 2024 and I have been thinking about self-improvement a lot. This isn't something that has taken up a small portion of my day. If anything, this has been looming over me for quite some time, and I thought it would take a short break from my usual content creation schedule to make something new. I think the breaking point for me was hearing about New Year's resolutions and not having one that I feel is solid enough. Something else that swayed me to make this video is the mental health crisis that plagues young adults. While the topic of today's video, self-improvement, may be broad, I hope to point some folks in the right direction so they can feel better about themselves. Consider playing this video in the background, and if you have any tips to share, leave them in the comments. Let's get started. Setting the foundation for self-improvement is essential to growing as a person. You cannot begin to build yourself up without setting up, so I'll cover this point first. When I was going through some tougher times and hell-bent on getting stronger mentally, I came up with this phrase. To build yourself up, you must break yourself down. In other words, you must break your sense of self down into smaller pieces to get a better understanding of who you are. Of course, being the teen I was, I engaged in more dangerous behavior to achieve the desired result. Do not do what I did. In actuality, your foundation of self can be compartmentalized into these concepts: your personality, strengths, weaknesses, goals, and your motivations. Eventually, you will need to come to terms with each of these parts to make progress on your journey. Self-awareness is a cornerstone of self-improvement. If you cannot see your issues from an objective standpoint, there is no way you can fix them. For example, if you feel like you could be doing better in school or your career, you would need to take a step back and visualize in what areas you're lacking. One of my middle school teachers put it in a way that I can remember years later. Know what you know and know what you don't know. Once you are aware of what you're good at, you can start working on your more lacking areas. This concept pops up in many literary works by the Harvard Business Review, LinkedIn, and Indeed. These are sites that are focused on building and sustaining careers, so it's no wonder that they stress the importance of self-awareness. Setting goals lines up your priorities and keeps you focused. You'll be less likely to wander off and make the same mistakes over and over. Self-discipline is the next step towards self-improvement. It's one thing to know your weakness and another thing to take action on them. For many, this concept may get confused with self-management, so I'll just stick to the first term to avoid mix-ups. Managing how you act following what you learned about yourself is something that everyone will struggle with. After taking in all of the information from self-awareness, you must now regulate how you act to channel your energy productively. Now, one of the many issues with being a better person is slipping back into old habits. Discipline is all about resisting the temptation to engage in problematic behavior. This will require a deliberate, conscious effort on your part to see results. By adhering to rules you make, you can better manage your progress towards your goals. Let's cover the darker side of things though, since I feel it is equally important to hear. When one begins self-discipline, they are bound to make mistakes. Making mistakes is fine, just as long as something is learned and steps are taken to prevent them later on. What is not okay is punishment that is excessive, lowered self-love, and in extreme cases, self-harm. Mental health is extremely important, and the pursuit of self-improvement should not involve self-sabotage, especially to the extent of self-harm. Realizing you made a mistake and correcting it is the best course of action. Of course, you may feel down after backsliding, but it is inevitable. Perfectionism is neither healthy nor helpful. Feelings of shame will come up, but at the end of the day, tearing yourself down creates lasting problems. Try to recognize the progress you made over time. David Goggins puts it in a way that I think many will appreciate. He says to look at your past, your mistakes, or shortcomings as a training ground. This optimism is something that will bolster your discipline. Let's move on to something that I feel is important to the younger generation. The rule of thirds, a concept that Ian Dobson, a retired Olympic runner, came up with. Very often, we get caught up in a desire for a constant dopamine rush. We want to feel good all the time, which can be attributed to the prevalence of social media and exaggerated narratives. It blurs the line between motivation and discipline, causing some feats to seem much easier than they are in reality. Let me first differentiate between motivation and discipline in their most basic definitions. Motivation will drive you towards your goal, causing you to take the initial steps. Discipline, as I mentioned earlier, is about creating a consistent pattern of behavior that will get you to finish your goals. Motivation comes in spurts, whereas discipline is more akin to a lifestyle. Motivation comes and goes, something that everyone has experienced. Discipline pushes people through hard times, especially when they don't want to carry on. Creating habits through discipline is more important than just being motivated. If we don't feel compelled to do something, we'll do it anyways because it's embedded in our heads. So how does this relate to the rule of thirds? Dobson explains that while chasing a goal, you are supposed to feel good a third of the time, feel okay a third of the time, and feel crappy a third of the time. The ratio is supposed to be within that range so that one feeling does not dominate the others and throw off the balance. Dobson says that having a dominating feeling is not a good sign in the slightest. Feeling crappy most of the time is a sign of impending burnout and fatigue. Feeling good 24/7 means that you're not working nearly as hard as you should be. Feeling just alright all the time means you are not applying yourself to your work. In the context of this video, self-improvement is not going to feel good all the time. At the start of your journey, you may feel frustrated, or in Dobson's jargon, crappy. After some meditation and reflection, you'll start to realize what you need to work on and move on to feeling okay. Then, once you make some progress, you'll start to feel pretty good. This is a cycle that will continue to repeat. After correcting one issue, another one will arise and take precedence. I feel like the rule of thirds takes down a prevalent desire for instant gratification, since there's always something to work on. Instant gratification is linked to lower achievement, higher debt, obesity, risky sexual behavior, and substance abuse, according to Forbes. It takes time, dedication, and discipline to improve oneself. And this approach is great for that. There will be extremely difficult times, but it's about loving the process. With this approach, there's always something to improve, always something that could be balanced out. In my last point, I made the analogy that self-improvement is a journey rather than a destination. The goals for self-improvement are constantly evolving, and results won't come instantly. Focus on being present in the moment and take the time to appreciate where you're going and where you came from. Emphasizing the journey rather than the destination allows for better planning. Large goals aren't achieved overnight. They are achieved over a long period, with many sub-goals being achieved on the way to the big prize. These smaller achievements serve as milestones, provide direction, and allow for some form of celebration. This rules out some of the distractions that may come along the way, but it's still up to the individual to adhere to their own disciplinary standards. To that end, don't compare your journey to anyone else's, and don't be swayed because someone compared you to another person. Comparison is a thief of joy when done incorrectly. Taking inspiration from another person in your life or even a character is fine. However, don't forget that they went through struggles to get where they are now. One idea that I think math nerds will appreciate is getting 1% better every day. When pushing for success, it's easy to overdo it and hit 5% per day, but that's a recipe for burnout. Once burnout sets in, backslide will too. This concept stems from 1.01 to the power of 365, the amount of days in a year. Every day you will strive to be 1% better than the last, hence the base number. No matter how small the improvement, this will add up over time. 1.01 to the power of 365 is equivalent to 37.78, meaning you'll be about 37 times better than when you started. Keep at it, and the results will come over time. How does this video relate to the rest of the channel? I'm a firm believer that self-improvement is part of all facets of life. I aim to improve this channel, how I create content, how I approach issues, and even my gameplay when it comes to competitive aspects. The steps I outlined don't just apply to one area of our lives. They can be applied to everything. I think Ascendant Nomad made a video that I watched quite a while back about improvement in competitive Crucible. I want to extend that mindset to my viewers for everything else. With the decline of the Destiny 2 player base, things have come to a head. So please, prioritize yourself, get good, respectfully in the context of this video, and have fun. As always, thank you all for watching, and happy farming.